So we're living in an aging, growing population. In fact, the United Nations estimated that by 2050, the population of over 65 years old will reach 2.1 billion. Currently, around 2/3 of people admitted to hospital are age 65 or over. And on average, these patients take around 15 medications. Older people are living with frailty. More and more older people are living with frailty. What that means is they will find it harder to readjust and bounce back after a hospital admission. When older people are admitted to hospital, they are at a higher risk of infection and loss of independence. Sadly, what that means is further hospital admissions. That's what we call readmissions. So the current health system, as you would have heard on the news, has limited resources. With less available hospital beds, with higher care demands, there is a need to allocate our resources appropriately. How? Well, that's essentially the purpose of my PhD thesis, which is to work out frail elderly patients at high risk and deliver targeted intervention so that we can effectively reduce readmissions. But surely there are tools out there already to help identify patients who are at high risk. Well, there are, but none of them include medicines-related risk. And not many of them can be used by the bedside to help clinicians pick out patients who need the most attention. We all know that in order for something to work, it needs to fit the theory of right patient, right intervention, right time. So, right patient. The studies from my results so far found that patients taking 10 or more medicines, or patients who are taking potentially inappropriate medicines for older people, have a higher risk of readmissions. Right intervention. By involving patients, their carers, and clinicians, my research aimed to work out which pharmacist interventions do all parties think are effective and useful. That way, service redesign is not just for the patients, but by the patients and with the patients. So, right patient, right intervention, right time. That is the aim of my research. Thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, my name is Zahraa. I'm doing a PhD in medical engineering. My PhD or my presentation will have two parts. One, the scientific aspect of the PhD, and I'll end up with my personal experience while working with amputees. My PhD basically is about evaluating or presenting a scientific evaluation of this prosthetic limb, intelligent prosthesis. This limb is supposed to have, or it has, a microprocessor supposed to control knee and ankle. It's above knee prosthesis, control two joints, and it's supposed to be adapted to different terrains and different walking speeds. So it's adapted to user's need. The PhD research aimed at comparing between the limb with a microprocessor and without microprocessor. Without microprocessor, it will be a conventional prosthesis, less advantageous to the amputees, and also much less expensive. It's about 25 grants less money than the microprocessor one. So what the main focus is to compare, as I said, between microprocessor on or involved versus microprocessor off in a certain task, which is walking and stopping. The variables we use to assess this is the mechanical work done by each limb, the prosthetic side and the intact side. What we found is that more contribution from the prosthetic side when the microprocessor was on, which reduced the contribution of the intact side that used to stop the body walking. This has a consequences, these findings, which is The first thing, reduce the future problem that the amputees might have, like low back pain, irregular walking pattern, or even osteoarthritis problem the intact side. The other thing that I'd like to share with you is my personal experience with working with amputees. I've learned a lot from them, like thinking more positively, trying to challenging the problems that I go through. The amputation is life-challenging event. Most of my participants are working with the companies of prosthesis and decided to study the field of medical engineering, and particularly the prosthesis field. Also, the biggest message that I'd like to deliver is that the disability is not about our body. Disability is about how we think. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I'm going to start by asking you all please to put your hands over your eyes. Now think about this. How would you get out of this room? How would you navigate food on your plate? And how would you identify your knitting needles? Now take your hands off and squint. Can you see my slide? Would you easily be able to recognise the person next to you? And now very briefly put your hands over your ears. Can you hear me? Would you be able to dance to the beat of your favourite song? We rely on these senses to guide us in everyday life, but this unfortunately is a reality for many older people in care homes. In fact, it's estimated that 75% of people in care homes are living with hearing impairments, and about 50% are living with visual impairments. However, many of these go undetected, and those that are identified have difficulty managing their own aids due to cognitive decline or physical incapabilities, dexterity for instance. So whose responsibility is it to identify and manage these hearing and vision impairments? Is it audiologists and ophthalmologists? They don't have close links to care homes. In fact, annual assessments are often not regularly carried out. Is it care home staff? There's no training in place specifically for sensory impairments. In fact, they have very poor ear and eye care knowledge. So is it the residents and family members? They don't think that sensory impairments are a health issue. They think it's a normal part of ageing. They don't even raise it themselves, and with limited physical manifestations, it's difficult for others to recognise it for them. So, how can it impact quality of life? Isolation, loss of communication, falling, that's increased with visual impairments, even hearing impairments. So you've got serious health complications that are a result of it. Plus, it's found that increased mortality is also an issue in comparison to their peers. My research aims to assess on a national scale what these guidelines and barriers are that care homes adhere to, if they adhere to any. And it aims to also interview with patients, residents and family members to find out their side of the story, because this isn't one-sided, this is a whole real-world issue. The impact is on millions of people across England alone. It's not just residents, it's family members, care home staff. And I'm not just going to gain knowledge, I'm going to try and develop an intervention with these care homes, residents and family members to actually develop this intervention to impact care homes and address this high-impact health issue that is so commonly overlooked, and influence policymakers to take this seriously. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm interested in a disease called Pulmonary Arterial Hypertension, or PAH for short, in which the small vessels that supply the lungs become blocked. This causes an increase in blood pressure, which, as we know, then puts strain on the heart. There's no cure for PAH, so the majority of patients will die from heart failure within 2.5 years. There are treatments to manage the symptoms of the disease. So these dilate the blood vessels to ease blood flow. They're known as vasodilators. However, they're associated with severe side effects and complex administration procedures. So there's a real need for novel, new therapeutics. I'm particularly interested in a type of vasodilator called prostanoids. So these act by increasing a molecule known as cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP then triggers dilation of the blood vessels. I'm interested in these in particular because they are the only drug to increase life expectancy of a patient. So my question is, why are these different to the other vasodilators being used? A key bit of research that really impacts my research is inflammation was recently shown to be a key factor in PAH progression, and in particular a pro-inflammatory hormone known as IL-6. So IL-6 is increased in pulmonary arterial hypertension patients. It stimulates inflammatory pathways, and it is causes abnormal vessel growth. This is relevant to me because prostanoids, as I said, elevate cyclic AMP, and an additional function of cyclic AMP is to induce SOX3. SOX3 is an anti-inflammatory factor that targets interleukin-6 activity. Hoping you can see how this all comes together now. So my hypothesis is that prostanoids limit inflammation in pulmonary arterial hypertension. They do this by stimulating SOX3, which then inhibits IL-6 signaling. I investigate this in cells specific to the blood vessels affected in pulmonary arterial hypertension, and so far I've shown three key things: that prostanoids do induce SOX3 in these cells, they do limit interleukin-6 activity, and they do prevent the cellular dysfunction typical of pulmonary arterial hypertension. I want to really characterise the exact signaling pathways involved to identify any potential drug targets that we're not currently exploiting, and then further research will hopefully go on to develop novel therapeutic drugs to target this. Thank you for your time and the opportunity.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Al-Sadoon. I'm a PhD student at the University of Bradford, doing my PhD in Medical and Healthcare Technology. And today I'm taking you throughout my research so far. As we all know, it's inevitable that taking care of the elderly has been a huge burden for the governments, families, and friends. However, the current technologies are tackling this problem through wearable devices, video sensors, environmental-based sensors. Unfortunately, these come at high cost, and they are sometimes intrusive through video recording. That's why our thesis approach was basically building a non-intrusive health monitoring system for the elderly living alone through recording the inaudible low-frequency signals in their environmental living, along with ascertaining their positioning in real-time data. The former tool is based on a cheap and reliable positioning system through ultrasonic acoustic sensors developed through two integrated development environments, Arduino and Python. The result from this gadget was two positioning plots, one in two-dimensional space and the other one in a three-dimensional space, to make sure the positioning of the elderly, if they are laying down or they are standing up. The latter tool is based on audio fingerprinting. Audio fingerprinting nowadays is used in identifying songs from listening to a 5 seconds or a 10-second sample and compare it to basically a database of songs, and these are the technology used nowadays. Our approach is basically recording the inaudible low-frequency sounds and apply the fast Fourier transform to get the power frequency spectrum, then removing any background noise and white noise from these signals using Hamming windowing. After that, we can get, through a generated MATLAB code, we can get the spectrogram of the frequencies. And I've put here an example of the footsteps of someone walking on a wooden floor barefoot. Through the methodology that I made, we have a reference data set of the footsteps that we compare at a confidence interval of 95% with 10-second samples recording. And in order to prove this, we took another 10-second sample from a water running, and we compared it with the reference data set of the footsteps, and we got a match. And for the further work, we're gonna do it as an automated sample. Thank you.
So the current cancer treatment comes with a lot of side effects. And these side effects normally are even more harmful to the patient than the cancer itself. And because they are very harmful to the patient than the cancer is, it dramatically reduces the quality of life for the patient during the chemotherapy. And this renders most of the patients disabled during their chemotherapy. So my PhD was to develop a platform that can deliver cancer drugs, which are known to be toxic, directly into the tumor. And when I say tumor, I mean the cancer, directly into the cancer, killing them, but not delivering it in any other organs, which causes these toxicities. So as the concept shows there, what we do is, and what I've been doing is, the toxic drug, which is known to kill cancer cells, is being converted to a non-toxic prodrug by peptide chemistry in such a way that when you deliver this, when you administer this drug to the body, it systemically runs in the body, causing no effect. And immediately it gets into the cancer. With the help of a protease, it cleaves and delivers the toxic drug into the cancer, killing them. So ideally, you'd be expecting a drug like that, which will release the red bar, the toxic drug, into the cancer, killing them. But in the normal tissues like kidney, liver, it remains the blue, non-toxic prodrug, and you get no toxicity. So over the 3 years of my PhD, I've developed over 60 drugs, which has been robustly tested, and FV48 have shown to have the characteristics of an ideal prodrug. As you can see with FV48, in all the normal tissues, in the normal organs, liver, kidney, lungs, you see the red bar very low, showing that there are low toxic drugs being released in the normal tissues. So the impact of this study is that over the 3 years, I have not developed just a PhD, but I have made an impact which will be continued to develop even after my PhD. And this getting into the clinic presents hope for cancer patients and their family, and more importantly, will help to end the fight against cancer. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed. I'm a PhD student in the 3rd year. My research area is under design and implementation antenna array direction of arrival for indoor and outdoor localization application system. And this area have many different applications, including radar system, tracking system, and mobile communication. So during my research study, I worked on 3 different areas. First, I start with the antenna design. So in the first year, I was able to design omnidirectional, small size, low profile spiral array. And after completing the design of this antenna and fabricate this antenna, I moved to the second stage, which is on the signal processing stage. And with this stage, I need to develop or present a new and low complexity direction of arrival method. And I was able to propose a new low complexity direction of arrival method. And the function of this method to process the received signal and find the direction of the signals. After that, the third stage is to combine the antenna with the direction of arrival algorithms and put it in the top of the vehicle for tracking application. And in order to evaluate and test our system, the Bradford University campus, part of them is model including Durham building and Arterial building. And we was this system for tracking application, for saving life or for emergency situation or for some situation. So as you can see, the transmitter is put it in the inside Durham building in the 3rd floor, exactly in the B310. And the tracking process started from this point. So there is like antenna array in the top of the vehicle and receive the signals. And this car is moved based on the estimated direction. So we started from this point, and at each point we receive the signals and we move this on the estimated direction. So as you can see, the step of or the path of tracking the process until we arrive at this point, which give me our object or the tracked point, which is located on the 3rd floor. And because the environment, we have multi-environment, we take another movement and we estimate the direction. Thank you very much.
Good morning, my name is Tony Walker. My PhD is in peace studies and my subject is music and conflict transformation. My research starts at the 1998 Good Friday Agreement, when the peace accord was signed and peace came to Northern Ireland after many years, since 1968, of internecine conflict. We can see from the slides that the hands across the divide in Durham represent the Catholic and Protestant young men who are reaching out to each other across the river. Northern Ireland is all about music and murals, and when I say music, I mean traditional Irish music. Music is a form of communication. It's also a psychological weapon, and what fascinates me is the psychology of terrorism. What I'm looking at is how the two communities can be strengthened by their differences. I'm seeking to see if they can have their entrenched attitudes curbed. Because if you scratch the surface of someone in Northern Ireland, you will get quickly into a conversation on sectarianism. When we look at the tradition of the Catholics, we'll see the harp, and when we look at the traditions of the Protestants, we'll see the lambeg drum. The Soldier's Song, which is the national anthem of Catholic Republicans, strikes fear into the Protestants. Dread becomes part of the Catholic feeling when they hear the Sash My Father Wore. Both are tunes I play regularly across the South Pennines without any fear of upsetting anybody. But in Belfast, if you play one of those tunes in the wrong pub, the very best that can happen to you is you might be asked to leave and go to another session. In the middle there you see the Hounds of Ulster, some friends of mine who come from both sides of the community, and I don't like conflict, and so I hang about with people from the Hounds of Ulster, and we promote music in a different way by cross-community communication. I'm focusing my research in integrated schools in Northern Ireland because I want to see if since 1998 the people that are about 20 years or younger have been taught the traditional musics of both traditions in schools in Northern Ireland, and how this will change their attitudes forever as they make their way into a new and exciting era in Northern Ireland. Thank you for listening.
Hello. So one of the biggest challenges we're facing like in the 21st century is not actually discovering new moieties or new drug delivery systems. It's basically utilize what we already got to deliver these medications into the target tissues or the site of action. And my research focuses on using unconventional methods delivering these drugs into their site of actions, using common day, everyday materials we find around us. One of these materials is gels. These gels are made of a material that's called peroximers. These building blocks basically forms tiny little nanocarriers that actually encapsulate drugs into inside their cores or within the extensions, and then move it around to the site of action. These tiny little drugs can be designed to be tuned into the body temperature and to release the drug at constant rate and control the site of action. So make it completely designable and tunable according to the patient's needs. This will save us lots of costs of like health and in the health bill aspects, and it will save the patients a lot of pain and improve their compliance because we can actually incorporate multiple drugs within these nanocarriers. The beauty of these systems is that they're completely reversible. So they're solutions in room temperature, and that's when they get injected into the patient's body, and then they form this semi-solid, soft matrix of a gel, then that actually disperses the drug and releases it slowly over the controlled period of time we actually designed. These systems are far from being easy or less complex systems, because at room temperature there is no structure whatsoever. However, when they're triggered under certain conditions, they form this massive, beautiful matrix of gels that actually contain these drugs and release it slowly over time. I'm not saying that these delivery systems are the holy grail, or it's going to save us and actually utilize all the drug discovered over time, and then we find finally a way to kind of deliver it and transfer it into our bodies. But someone else believes that, and I'm one of them. Thank you for listening.
Good morning. So today I'm going to take you all on a journey. And now some of you, or probably all of you, have been on this journey, and it's the journey into hospital. You might have been for personal reasons, you might have been with a loved one. We're quite lucky in the UK because we have the NHS, so if we're acutely unwell or there's an exacerbation of a chronic condition, for example, we can walk into a hospital and know that we're going to be looked after. What else can we expect? Care, quality, safety? Well, actually, you might be surprised to know that 7% of all admissions are actually due to adverse drug reactions, and 72% of those are avoidable. Let that just sink in for a second. 72% we can actually prevent. And one of the ways we can do this is via a process called medicines reconciliation. Now, some of you might already be familiar with that, and for those of you who aren't, medicines reconciliation is the process where we document a patient's medication from when they came into hospital. So this is anything they were taking before they came in. And it's important to know because it might be the cause of their admission. It might make them better, or it could potentially make them worse. So it's going to help with diagnosis and probably prognosis as well. So it is quite important. What my project is aiming to do is to help with the definition of medicines reconciliation, because what we find, or what we're finding, is the National Institute of Care and Excellence is saying we want this to be done within 24 hours of admission. So 24 hours of when a patient's admitted into hospital, we want them to receive medicines reconciliation. And that's not always happening, and that's unfortunate actually. And it might be due to the lack of understanding whose role and responsibility medicines reconciliation is. It might be our underpaid or overworked staff who are working night and day. And it might just be that we don't actually have a fully operational 7-day-a-week, 24 hours a day NHS system. So considering all that, my project, like I said, will be here helping to define medicines reconciliation, not just for staff, but for patients as well. We've already had interviews with patients and staff to try and develop an intervention. Once we get this intervention, we're going to roll that out into practice and, of course, test that as well. And I'm quite lucky, I'm not just doing the project with the university, I'm doing it with the hospital as well. So it very much will be translational research. We're going to have this end product and we're going to test it out in practice. It's not only going to reduce admissions, it's not only going to increase patient safety, but ladies and gentlemen, it will save lives. There's evidence to support that, and I'm standing here in front of you having done the research myself. Thank you very much for listening.
So I can announce that we have a winner of the People's Choice, but we also have a second place. Second place was a tie between Wendy and Bana. Wendy and Bana came second jointly.
So you are highly commended, and we will plaster that all over social media.
Take a picture.
But the winner of the People's Choice was Sarah Khan.
Congratulations. So, Sarah, here is
Should
your...
we have some photos of the winners
I
of
think
the
we should,
People's
Sarah,
Choice
here's
as
your
well?
certificate. So Wendy, we have one for you.
What?
Barna's I will keep. I will retain that until such time she can collect it. So thank you for taking part.
Okay. If I have
have to do it, you have to do it.
Shall we do the...
There's Wendy.
Thank you very much.
These are courtesy of your Students' Union, and may I say, I think they've done a delightful job.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Cheers, thank you.
Can we do a photo with the second place?
Yeah. Thank you.
I would hate to do like what the Sabs do, colourful and stuff, because they give all the awards out and it's small.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you.
So, can we have a round of applause for our judges? Right, could we have our judges to the front, please? We are at the final point of reckoning. So, just to reiterate, we have Bana and Wendy, who have been highly commended for their presentations from the people in the room, and our winner of People's Choice is Sarah Khan. And now it's over to the judges, and I believe that they would all like to say something to the remainder of us here.
Yes, thank you, Russell. I thought I wasn't really judging. I was here to enjoy the experience, to be honest with you. Being a peer reviewer has been a really amazing, inspiring, position for me today. I enjoyed everybody's presentations, and you've inspired me, basically. But I would like my other fellow judges to say a word or two before we announce the winner. So, Olu?
Yeah, thank you so much. Like she has said, I really enjoyed the presentation. But my own feedback is something that was missing in all the presentation. And what was missing was the methodology. Because I was meant to understand when you are making a presentation, you have to tell her what you are doing, then why are you doing it, then how do you want to do it. Then the how is somehow missing in all the presentation. But nevertheless, we've all tried. Can we put our together once again?
Thank you. Next, I will call on Sam.
Well, that was great feedback. I don't feel like I can contribute to that apart from to say thanks to all the speakers. I thought they were all really good. When you're doing a PhD, you've got enough to worry about, never mind doing a 3-minute thesis talk on top of that, and coming here and talking to people who you think in your head know more than you. The truth is they don't, but you think in your head anyway. So, huge amount of confidence, and I wanted to say that I thought that was really impressive, actually. So anyone that gave a talk today, you can take that away and think, next time you're at a conference, do a talk, not a poster, because they were all good enough. Definitely.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, yes. Well, as an academic at this university for far too long, really, it's great to see so many people so enthusiastic about their research, and great to see so many people with the confidence and, speaking as an English lecturer, with the presentation skills to communicate that enthusiasm to an audience. So just well done, everybody.
So, having said that, I want us all to think everyone that presented as a winner. Think of yourself as a winner. Say, I'm a winner.
I'm a winner. I'm a winner.
I feel like one too. There is no loser in this, We're all doing it for the experience, and so let's all enjoy it. So we'd like to announce.
Yes, I think one of you should definitely do it.
Drum roll.
Sarah can.
So well done to Sarah.
Yeah, well done, Sarah. Congratulations.
We had, I like transparency, and let's face it, open access research of the 21st century is nothing if not about transparency. We struggled in the sense that, not with who was the clear winner, but the fact that the People's Choice vote came out the exact same. And we thought, well, what's the best thing to do? Do we create a runner-up and give it to a second person, or what do we do? But I agree with the judges' decision. They made the decision, which is Sarah was the clear winner, uninfluenced. They wanted me to point out nothing to do with the running order. It was all due to their scoring. And she also won the people's vote. So we think it's fair that both prizes go to Sarah. So congratulations. Obviously, you all have certificates. We're not going to say that just because you didn't win a People's Choice, you can't even have a nice lovely model certificate by the Student Union's own fair hand. So I'm going to make sure you get your certificates. It would be nice if we had maybe a final photo with everyone with the certificates. Please, can we say thank you? We've already done our thanks to sort of the team that put it together. Please, will you say thank you to the judges? It's not easy.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for staying all the way to the end. I am thrilled about that, and I'm so impressed. And I'm so impressed with the timekeeping. I mean, I am rubbish at sticking to time at conferences. I try, but you did amazingly. That was just brilliant and impressive talks.
Thank you.
Impressive talks. Impressive doorkeeping from Danny the doorkeeper. So thanks to our judges. Let's have some certificates and some photos after you.
And there is, of course, one last thank you to give, which is to Russell. Who has been the driving force behind this. This would not have happened if it wasn't for Russell driving this, making it happen. So thank you. Thank you very much.